Welcome to Secular Soup. Stay tuned for real talk about atheism, feminism, politics, parenting, and whatever the fuck else Amy and Amy want to talk about, because this is their show. And get ready for a whole lot of motherfucking profanity.
You want to hear a secret?
I won't tell anybody. Go ahead. If I sit next to you, I'm going to get gonorrhea. It's going to jump into me. Just two ladies hanging out.
Is it okay for me to make fun of his neck waddle if I make fun of my own neck waddle?
I'm not sure.
That's a real ethical conundrum.
Would you know if you were born a lizard person, or can you be like adopted into the...
I think you know.
We're such professionals.
We really are.
Buckle up, bitches. It's time to have some soup.
I'm Amy with a Y, and Amy with an I is not joining us this week. I gave her the week off because I'm a really good boss, because I am the boss of her, in case you didn't know. So tonight I have a special guest with me who is filling in at the last minute very graciously. I have Dell here. Dell, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about your podcast and what your deal is, what you do, what you talk about? Just tell us about yourself.
I am Dell. I also live in rural Minnesota, but
yay,
way too far away on the other side of rural Minnesota to actually see you in real life like normal humans do.
Yeah, which sucks.
Yeah. I mean, having real life friends is kind of stressful.
That's true.
It's one of those things like you wish for, but then it's like if it were to really happen, it would be kind of a lot of work.
Yeah, friends take a lot of work.
Yeah, exactly. I started a podcast this winter. I've only got 4 episodes out because they take a lot of research, and I have my own farm that I run. And I also then, because we have a wonderful president who is so good at trade negotiations.
God, I love him so much.
Right? I can't believe the amazing deals that he's able to secure for us. So I have no income and haven't for several years. So I had to also get a full-time job and run my farm. So I have been not working. I started working at 4:45 this morning, and it is now 6:45, and I have been not working for approximately 20 minutes. But it's fine because I've had several glasses of wine in that 20 minutes.
Yeah. Wine fixes everything. Amy will tell you that. All you need is some liquor at the end of the day, and it fixes all of your problems.
Yeah, well, it helps.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to deal with fucking Donald Trump. So we met each other at the Secular Women Work Conference last year, so we've actually met in the flesh. We had a great time. It was fantastic, but this is the first time we're actually talking since then. And I know that one of your main issues is ethical eating, and I should have some really good questions lined up about that, but I just don't. So do you have some sort of like rant you want to go on about ethical eating, or what the most important issue related to that is to you?
Sort of my mission with my podcast is I just a couple years ago started listening to podcasts and discovered that skepticism was a thing and like the atheist movement was a thing, which I didn't really know before. I've kind of been an atheist my whole life. Even when I got sent to Catholic school, I was like, this sounds like bullshit, which went over really well at age 8.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so the skeptical movement has gotten pretty good about some issues regarding food. Like they're usually, pro-GMO. They don't fall for a lot of fear-mongering around like pesticides or like, oh, natural is better or any of that stuff. For the most part, but like that's not universal, obviously. I still hear some stuff here and there, but especially when it comes to animal agriculture, there still seems to be this really big fear of like technology and progress, and like, oh my gosh, if we have progress in technology, like that just sounds bad, like it sounds scary. And I just want to kind of get people as excited about technology when it comes to food production, especially animal food production, as they are about like science in other aspects of the world. So that's just kind of what I want to do with my show, because I think I'm totally cool with everybody making their food choices, and I think it's awesome. And I actually really enjoy talking to people who are vegan and vegetarian because they tend to care where their food comes from, so they're actually interested in talking to me, whereas like a lot of people are like, I go to the grocery store and I buy food and why would I give a shit what you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things...
I just want everybody to have, base their decisions on facts.
Right, to know what they're making a decision about instead of just...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't eat meat because you think all farmers are all awful people that torture their animals to death, like, we should have a chat. But, like, if you're like, no, I get how it works, I'm just not into it, that's awesome. Go for it. I
think one of the biggest things for me anyway, and I don't know a ton about this issue. I know probably as much as, I guess, the next person does. I'm not a vegetarian. We are carnivores. But honestly, if I were single, I would become a vegetarian because I'm just not, I don't like meat that much. Like, it's not even necessarily a moral reason for me. I'm just not a big meat fan. Like, I like a good cheeseburger now and again. But my husband and my 2 children are fucking carnivores. They want meat with every meal. They want meat all the time, meat in every fashion and sauce and just constant fucking meat, and I'm sick of cooking it, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, if you stop cooking it, you could get rid of the problem altogether.
I've tried. It's what happened
survived.
Is my husband learned that at Costco you can get like giant packs of meat, and he figured out how to use a slow cooker. And so I just kind of quit cooking, but then we ended up having roast pork every fucking night of the week.
No, roast pork is the
I can't
worst.
deal with it. It's awful.
Who eats roast pork? Like, it's just I don't
hate pork, and every time he makes it, I'm like, no, I'm good. I won't have any. Why? It's really good. I'm like, yeah, I get it. I just don't like it. You guys,
no, it's roast pork. It tastes like roast pork, and that's the most boring food
too.
on
It's
the planet.
got this smell that I just. Ugh. Anyway, but so my issue with it is I still do love animals. Like, I've still got that. Like, I see a cow on the side of the road, and I'm like, oh, cute little sweet cow, and I like the idea that, you know, I'm not against killing animals for food. I think that's part of the food chain. That's what we do. But part of me really does care about the treatment that animal receives before we kill it. Like, if we're treating it humanely and killing it in as humane a way as we can. Because, yeah, that just, I don't know, I guess it makes me feel warm and fuzzy. What are your thoughts on that, I guess? Because I think a lot of people who think like I do don't necessarily like factory farming because they feel like what it does to the animals before they get killed is terrible, if that makes sense.
Well, the bottom line of pretty much every one of those issues is like, there's not a simple answer. There's no label in the grocery store that you could just pick up and be like, well, this means that the animal was treated humanely. And there are labels that say that, but they're extremely tied up in the organic agriculture movement. And organic agriculture, and I don't even know if a lot of skeptics even realize this, but organic agriculture is 100% based on, is it natural or synthetic? So cows and animals can only get like homeopathy. They can't get real medicine. Ugh. So to me, how can you say that that's better for animal welfare?
Yeah, but I know enough to know that the labels mean nothing because I did a bunch of digging into that at one point because I used to own a small little food store that was just for people with food allergies. So I had to learn a lot about organic food and what, you know, and GMOs, and just because the companies I was ordering the gluten-free food from, most of them were organic companies. Right. So I had learned what does it really mean if they put all natural on the label, and what does organic actually mean, and who gets to use that label. And so I guess I know about that kind of thing. And it would be great if there was, I guess, some sort of labeling system to let consumers know how the animals are treated. But I think a lot of people like especially in rural areas, prefer to buy their meat from local farmers if they can, because they know that those animals are being treated a little better, which maybe I'm wrong about that.
They think they do, but do they? I mean, so my cows graze in the pasture. I have a very small farm. My cows are out on pasture all the time, but I just don't see any reason to say that my cows being on pasture are having a better life than cows in a barn. I don't know what the basis is for deciding that one of those is better than the other. My cows are exposed to a lot more diseases than the cows in the barn are. My cows have a larger carbon footprint per gallon of milk than the cows in the barn are. But I guess they get more space. And so if you decide that that's important, but how do we even say, so for the most part, at least in the dairy industry, larger farms on almost every animal health measure are miles ahead of small farms.
Really?
Because they have access to so many more resources. They have the vet out every week, no matter what. They have equipment to deal with foot problems so that the minute a cow starts limping, they can put her right in. And I've worked at dairies from 1,000 cows all the way down to 40 cows. So it's trade-offs. It's just, I guess I don't really know what the answer is, but I think it's a little unjustified to jump to the conclusion that just because you think cows look pretty in a field instead of in a barn means that that cow's actually having a better life. And maybe she is, but I just don't know that there's a good scientific reason to think that she's happier.
Yeah, that comes down to how do we even know what quality of life means for any certain animal? Like I can, I have cats and I think I can tell when they're happy and when they're not happy and when they're in pain and when they're not, but I'm never going to get inside that cat's head either. I'm not, there are some very basic things that I can tell that cat is hurt or unhappy, but...
And I think we need to focus on the health stuff first, because the health stuff we can be sure about, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because you're never going to know how a cow feels, I guess. So do you think a lot of the maybe fear-mongering about factory farming is just a way to help the organic industry? Or do you think there's anything behind that fear? Or do you think it's all just kind of bullshit?
That's a really good question.
Have you seen Food Inc.? What do you think about the Food Inc.?
I can't watch stuff like that.
Okay.
It's too upsetting because it's just so biased and it's so sensationalized. It's just if I were going to sit down, I could do a god-awful movies about Food Inc. and I would do it. I would make myself do it and I would fact check every claim and I would probably enjoy doing that, but I'm not going to raise my blood pressure in that way in my free time.
That's actually a great idea. You should totally do that. I think a lot of people would enjoy that.
That's a great idea. Oh my gosh, it would take so much work. It's so much work just for even my short 30-minute episodes because I don't want to say anything that's incorrect and I spend a lot of time caveating myself over and over again. I mean, that's what a good skeptic does, right?
Well, that's why it's nice to have a show where you literally plan nothing and just say whatever comes out of your mouth and just don't give a shit, because then you don't have to fact check or plan. You can just talk over each other and drink. I mean, that's the way to do a podcast.
15 links to all of your sources in every one of your show notes. Is that what you're telling me?
I mean, sometimes if I remember, I'll at least link to the guest's website. That's pretty much the most. And I've recently, after 73 episodes, figured out that I should start taking show notes while I'm doing the show instead of waiting until a week later and then trying to remember what we said so that I can put in the show.
Oh, no.
Only took me 73 episodes to figure that out, but I'm learning.
You're a professional. It's fine.
I'm a total pro. But yeah, no, I think this issue in general is something that doesn't get talked about enough in skeptic circles because there is so much misinformation out there about GMOs in general and about factory farming and organics and I feel like it kind of ties in with the anti-vaccination movement too. You have a lot of the people
that's made it to animals. There's anti-vaxxers that won't vaccinate their pets and that won't buy vaccinated puppies and stuff.
Oh my god! I did not even realize
rabies.
Oh my god!
How horrifying is that?
What? I can kind of see it with kids a little bit. Only, I mean, I think it's totally unjustifiable, but I could see how, as a parent, you would think, I don't want to do anything at all to harm my child. What if this harms my child? Oh my god! I've done all this research and I think I know. I get how parents sometimes think that they're doing what's best even when they're not. But when it's your fucking pet, we know rabies vaccines work. What are you afraid of happening? That your dog is going to get the autisms? Or I cannot understand what that is.
I know.
Get them their fucking rabies shots, dude.
And here's something somewhat related. And maybe you already know this, but I feel like maybe people that don't live in rural areas, this might absolutely blow their mind. But the vast majority of organic farmers that I talk to are actually super far-right religious homeschool preppers.
Really?
Climate change deniers, the whole works.
Really? See, that surprises me because you think of it as such a lefty type movement, and back to the earth and all natural and love everybody and kind of a hippie thing. And I guess I've never connected that to, I know the people you're talking about because I'm surrounded by them, but I never realized that those were the people that were really getting into organic farming.
Oh yeah.
Why do you think
Catholic
that is?
friends with the 9 kids. they share a fundamental distrust of science, and organic agriculture is 100% based on, I mean, I think a lot of skeptics have figured out that organic is bullshit, but they haven't taken it a step further than that. And if you understand the history of the organic movement and you realize it literally means your animals can't get real medicine, it's the whole thing is just appeal to nature, appeal to nature, appeal to nature. What chemicals are natural? What chemicals are synthetic? And that's it. That's the entire basis for all of the rules of organic. That's it.
Well, and what kills me is that, like, bottom line, we need to fucking feed people. You know, it's great to have the luxury to feel like, oh, I only want to eat a tomato that was grown in somebody's backyard with love and care and sunshine. But the entire world needs to eat, and organic farming alone isn't going to solve that need.
But don't you know that one organic food university who only does that did one study with 2 acres one time, Amy, and it totally showed that organic had exactly the same yields as conventional.
Okay, that sounds legit. I'm just saying, I think they were probably right. That sounds like an accurate study. Isn't that how they do studies?
Yeah, and the way you can tell that it's definitely true is the fact that there's only one study and that they've been linking to it, the same study, for 15 years without anything new to say. So that shows you that, like, that one study was just that awesome.
Was really, really an important study. Yeah.
Right.
And it sounds like it was very thorough. So
That's
everything
how
I've heard
science
about
works.
organic is that it takes a lot more resources and actually is worse for the environment than what we're doing now because it takes up so much more of everything to do, I guess.
Exactly. So, I mean, you can criticize certain practices in conventional agriculture, and certainly there's, I'm sure, plenty of practices to criticize, you know, antibiotic overuse. I have a whole episode about antibiotic overuse, but antibiotic overuse and whatever else. But that doesn't mean you disallow all antibiotics because they're not natural enough. That's a ridiculous response to antibiotic overuse.
But did you know that garlic oil can help? Like, you know, if your cow has an ear infection or something, you could just put some garlic oil in there. And I've heard that cures it.
I bet they would really appreciate that when they have pink eye.
I'm sure
I could
they would.
I could just put like a whole clove of garlic in their eye.
Just little droppers right in the eye. It's
that wouldn't get me a
fantastic.
concussion at all.
And there's no chemicals that are unnatural in there. And
No chemicals at all, actually. I think no chemicals. I think it's just
perfect.
Chemical-free chemicals. So
Yeah, one thing, I love the argument that, because you get into this a lot with, you know, crunchy types, that it's follow the money. It's all about big pharma. And, you know, it's these big food companies, they just want to make money and they don't care. And as someone who has dealt with the organic food companies on the retail end, like I've been ordering wholesale from these companies, it's been many years since I did it, but those companies make a shitload more money than Betty Crocker does on their cake mix. Like if you buy an organic, quote unquote, all natural cake mix, you're paying 3 times as much for that. So following the money in that case seems totally backwards to me. The organics industry makes a fucking fortune on supplements and vitamins and shit that you do not need to be taking.
You are absolutely right.
Look at homeopathy. Oh my God. If you buy a homeopathic, if your child has a toothache and you decide you're going to go the homeopathic route, which is unconscionable because you're just giving your child water, you're going to pay $15 for one little bottle of tablets. You know, children's Tylenol is $4 a bottle. That argument makes no sense to me. Like, yeah, the organic industry is making a shitload of money.
They are, and that's why they've been, for the most part, in the last 10 years, bought up by all the big corporations. General Mills makes regular Cheerios and organic weird brand Cheerios. I don't know what any organic brands are, but I don't know, Uncle Bill's Cheerios.
Yeah. Burt's Bees got bought up by Johnson & Johnson or something. Like, yeah, those ones that you see at like Burt's Bees and those kind of Tom's of Maine and all that shit. Yeah, they've all been bought up by major corporations, but they keep the brand because they know they can make more money on it.
And even like, you know, people that are on the GMO side, people are like, oh, Monsanto is so evil. It's like, you realize Monsanto sells the organic seeds too, right? They sell all the seeds.
Yeah, my husband watched Food Inc. many years ago when it came out, and oh my God, he is just on the, not so much the factory farming thing or the GMOs, but he is convinced that Monsanto is the devil and everything they do is of the devil, and they're just the most evil corporation on the planet, and he will never buy Roundup. Not that he would ever need it anyway, but he's never going to buy it because Monsanto makes it, and I cannot talk him out of it. He's like, it's become gospel to him, and I don't even really know why. Like, you watched one show about it, and now you're all about how terrible Monsanto is.
So, like, do you buy off-brand glyphosate, or you just don't buy glyphosate?
I mean, we don't have time to garden anymore, so we don't buy anything. But he would probably buy the off-brand and think that he's doing
still made by Monsanto.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all half the shit we eat is made by Monsanto. Like, what? How? I don't.
Well, and then that's the thing is people talk about how they have a monopoly, and they have like 30% of the market share, which is a lot. Like, it makes them a big conglomerate, but it's also not ridiculously overwhelming. I mean, they own the Roundup Ready gene because they created it and they patented it, but like they actually lease that out to other companies, and it's not really a monopoly the way people necessarily think of it. I don't know. I try to have these discussions with people sometimes, and usually they just stop talking to me on the internet, but I'm very polite. I'm
the same way. I'm very polite with people, and eventually they just give up and block me because it's not because I'm mean. I'm just persistent. Like, I'll keep driving them insane until they can't take it anymore.
I'm kind of into the street epistemology method. Yeah. So I do a lot of like, what makes you think that? Because, I mean, I'm a little more aggressive than street epistemology, because if it was street epistemology, I would just ask a question and then let them answer it. But I'm like, what makes you think that factory farms are less humane, given that we know A, B, and C health outcome is better on factory farms? And then people go,
right.
Which...
And then they have to think for a minute, and that's scary.
That's the thing is, I still have hope that people that are interested in this kind of stuff can be swayed by facts to at least add some nuance to their opinions on this. And I guess I'm not even necessarily purporting to have all the answers, because the answer to everything is just, it's complicated, and there's just really no way to know that your food was raised the perfect way that you want it to be raised. But that's life. What I just want is for people to stop demonizing all sorts of different people and putting people into boxes about like, oh, these people do these horrible things and they're awful. And it's like, well, actually, these are the reasons they do it, and they're actually pretty good reasons.
The only exception to that is I 100% know where my eggs come from, and they're delicious, and I get them at a good price, and they come directly from across the street at my neighbor's house, who has chickens that just roam her yard, and they look like they're just having delightful fun all the time. They roam the yard and hang out by the front door, and they have little pals, and they'll play with the kid. Like, I know where my eggs come from.
Well, I can sell you some ground beef if you'd like to know where your ground beef comes from. Just throwing that out there.
But I can buy a 6-pack at Costco for like practically nothing. So yeah, for a while I tried to really get into, back when I first started learning more about this and was much more on the, not that everything needed to be all natural, but the like, I'm going to pay more money so that I know where my food came from. And it's so much more expensive that it's not even feasible to do that for most people. Like, I can get the cheap ground beef at the store if I want to eat it for a certain price, or I can get it from the local farmer's market and pay 3 times that amount for it. And if it were up to me, I would just quit eating the ground beef. But like I said, everybody in my fucking house wants meat all the time. So if we're going to keep them in meat, we have to buy the cheaper meat. It's just the way it is. So yeah. I try not to ask questions about where the meat comes from.
Well, most of the ground beef probably comes from dairy cows.
Really? I thought it was a whole different thing. Like, beef cows are raised totally separately on separate farms, and dairy cows are a totally different thing.
But of course, male dairy cows are all going to be beef. People like to talk about veal all the time, but like the amount of beef that we eat in the United States compared to the amount of veal, there's probably like 3,000 total veal calves in the United States. It's probably like less than 1%. I did the math once, like 10 years ago when I was arguing with a vegan. It's probably like less than 1% of all male dairy calves in the U.S. are veal. Like, they get raised as if they were beef cattle. That's what happens to the male offspring of dairy cows. And then dairy cows themselves also, as long as everything goes well, will also be beef. It's just that they'll be older, so they will almost always be 100% ground beef for the most part. Whereas a male dairy animal that gets raised up would actually probably be parted out into cuts of like steaks and roasts and all that. So it's something like almost half half the meat in the U.S. or half the ground beef in the U.S. I mean, oh gosh, see, now I'm saying things without being able to cite a source, is from dairy animals, whether that means dairy cows or just male dairy animals that were raised specifically for beef.
Huh. Well, I guess it makes sense that you probably can't get milk out of the male ones. I mean, I'm not entirely sure about anatomy and how that works, but I've heard you can only get milk out of the female ones.
No, you're
Am I
right,
incorrect
actually.
about
And
that?
it is amazing how many people have been surprised by that fact, and also extremely surprised by the fact that they have to have a baby before they start lactating. And then they kind of,
Oh my
a lot of times
God.
they kind of look at me. I spend a lot of time at the state fair. They kind of look at me and then they go, oh wait, of
fun.
course. I mean, the women do. The women look at me and they're like, oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah, we can't start making milk either until we've had
I
a
mean,
baby.
here's the thing about dairy farming.
Yeah.
I don't understand why anyone ever thought this was a man's job, because all I do is track ovulation cycles, stare at vaginal discharge, and deal with lactation and like birth-related
God.
problems and lactation-related problems. That's all it is. That's like all you're doing.
Yeah.
And pre-1950, everybody on the Division of Labor on Farms, pre-1950, pre-World War II really, everyone knew men do field work, women do animal work. That's how it worked. My grandparents, my grandma's brother could not have the farm because he was not married, and everyone knew you couldn't farm without a woman. But then when my parents went through agriculture and 4-H and FFA in the 50s and 60s and 70s, agriculture was not for girls. And they got a ton of pushback from all the educators. They weren't allowed. My mom's older sister was not allowed to be an FFA, and my mom was the first girl in their FFA, you know, in the
God.
early 70s. Yeah. And it's just like, holy
Yeah,
crap.
for those out there who don't know what we're talking about, Future Farmers of America,
Yes.
FFA. If you live in a rural area, you know what that is.
Yes, Future Farmers of America. They did not, they didn't allow women until I think my aunt said that if she'd have like pushed the issue, she like technically they had changed their rules and she probably would have been like allowed in if she really pushed it, but like nobody had ever done it before. So she was like, I'm fine.
Yeah, it's hard to be the first person, especially when you are in a small town or a rural area and everybody knows your business, and it's hard to do that kind of thing. But yeah, I grew up in a rural area, and I think people assume that if you live in a rural area, you know about farming. People are shocked to find out that not everybody who lives in a rural area owns or grew up on a farm. Turns out I did not. I really don't know anything at all about farming. But there seems to be this idea that people who live in rural areas all know things about farming. Maybe
And I get frustrated because I find a lot of like people that live in rural areas but don't know anything about farming think they do. And they think they sort of like culturally identify with farmers. And then they're all like the really, the red voting pro-Trump people. And if you look at actual farmers, which are like 5% of the rural population, everyone's like, oh, farmers all voted Trump in. And I finally found a study on that. It was taken like a week before the election of specifically farmers. It was the most goddamn biased fucking sample I've ever seen in my life. It was only crop farmers who only owned more than 200 acres. So like anybody from any of the coasts, like I wouldn't count as a farmer according to this study, all that stuff. It was 85% male, which we know that it's like 60-40 female male. And that's just in ownership. So like actual people doing the farm work, it's probably a lot closer to 50-50 male female. And they still only found 52% of farmers supporting Trump. So I'm just so sick of hearing this bullshit line about farmers supporting Trump, because they basically pulled the most biased sample size they could that eliminated everyone in a blue state and most of the women farmers and everybody that would farm produce or other things that would probably be a lot more likely to vote blue. All of those people were eliminated, and they still only found 52% of farmers supporting Trump, because everyone knew that Trump was an idiot on trade, and all farmers care about is trade. Like trade, where farmers are anti-EPA because the EPA terrifies us, and they're pro-trade, and Trump was an absolute idiot on trade. He ran on a platform of torpedoing TPP, which was going to be a huge win for American agriculture, and he ran on a platform of torpedoing enjoying it. So it's just, but it seems like all these rural people like feel like they identify with farmers, and they're the ones that are so vocally pro-Trump, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, you make a good point about that culturally, like they feel culturally connected to it. And I think part of that is just people who listen to country music or kind of have that cultural identification where they didn't grow up on a farm or they don't know anything about farming. They probably don't even know any actual farmers, but there's this country mentality that I'm proud to be from the country and I'm a country person. And it's a way to separate yourself from, the liberal elites that live in the cities. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, a lot of those people, when they're thinking about politics, aren't thinking about much other than I want to keep my gun and I don't want scary brown people coming into my town.
Well, and that's the other thing.
Where you find a lot of the Trump
Modern
voters.
Agriculture relies on immigrant labor so heavily. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. Voting for Trump is voting against their interests as far as their labor force, just unbelievably. Right. So that's the other thing that I've been like, gosh, this just doesn't make any sense to me. And that's kind of why I started digging deeper. And I actually dug into this survey the other day. I couldn't believe it. I was like, they found the most biased possible sample set they could, and they still only found like just barely. That's a pet peeve of mine overall, is when people are like, a district is 60-40 blue or 60-40 red. It's overwhelmingly Republican. It's overwhelmingly Democrat. Because I feel like that makes everybody that's in the minority, the quote minority in that district, like afraid to speak up because they feel like there are no blue voters where they live.
I mean, the last election we had, if you looked at the actual results for like the state house seat and the state senate seat, the Democrat lost by a 70-30 margin. So, I mean, it is more red here than blue, but there's also a lot of liberals here that didn't know there were other liberals mm-hmm. here. Like some of the groups that I organize, and I'm sick of community organizing, but some of the groups that I had helped organize and then kind of quit are all about just liberals and atheists and pro-choice people, just finding each other because we don't speak out because we're afraid to, especially when you own a business or you have kids in the school system that you don't want, a lot of the teachers, shockingly, a lot of the teachers are conservative, which surprises me because, traditionally teachers are such a union oriented. It seems like everyone I know who's a teacher is either all in unions, vote blue, Democrat, or they're just people who shouldn't be teachers because they're not thinking enough about it. But they're very conservative and you don't want your kid being somehow punished for what you're outspoken about. And so, yeah, we need to speak up more in rural areas because there are a lot of us and we just feel like there aren't. And that leads to a lot of apathy. Yeah.
It's like you tip over this tipping point of like 55-45 and then the media is mm-hmm. like, this is a solid red district, and then everybody that votes blue in that district, even though they're nearly half the population, is like, oh, nobody else mm-hmm. is like me here, and everybody just doesn't want to talk about it.
And you can see why when you look at who dominates the media, and our local newspaper has a letter to the editor section, and oh my god, if all you did was read that, you would assume that the town I live in is the fucking worst, which it is in a lot of ways, but you just get the most outspoken, loud people doing that kind of thing.
And they feel like they can be outspoken because they've been told that everybody here believes what I believe.
Yeah, and they're not afraid to talk about it. It's like the local crisis pregnancy center is huge in our town, and there are so many big name people in town that are on the board of that place, and they never even think that maybe it's controversial to tell people that they're on the board of a crisis pregnancy mm-hmm. center because they just assume, of course, that's a great thing. Like the bank that my parents have gone to for years with their business banking was like, oh yeah, I'm on the board for, people just are proud of that. And whereas if you're on the board for the local family planning clinic, you're afraid to tell people that because you don't know how that's going to affect your job or what you do or like it's sad, I don't know. I don't know how to get more people to speak up. And the atheism thing is hard too. We have a lot of atheists in our local atheist group who will not be open about it because, the place they work at, they legitimately fear that they would lose business or they would lose their job. But so they count on the rest of us who are able to speak out about it, to talk about it.
Well, it makes space for them, the folks who can. And that's why I use a pseudonym for all this stuff, because I don't talk about being queer. I don't talk about being an atheist. I just keep it to myself. I mentor a bunch of kids through 4-H, and like some of them, I don't necessarily know how their parents would feel. Now, I had half my hair shaved off and it was pastel pink all summer last summer. So, maybe they have some ideas, but I just don't know.
Maybe they think you're just one of those sassy, unique people who likes pink hair. I don't know.
The funny thing is, after I started doing that, the next year at a bunch of the events, there was at least 4 different women who were about 10 years older than me. I'm about to turn 30, who are about 10 years older than me, who had just little streaks in their hair. And like, I have my whole back tattooed, and I've had 2 women in agriculture come up to me and say, yeah, your tattoo really inspired me to get this little one here. And it's like, I'm just going to be the weirdest one in the room, apparently. And that's going to make a little bit of space for other people to have a little fun with their lives,
Well, and I think especially, like, I know a lot of people who will complain about, bumper stickers don't mean anything. You shouldn't put bumper stickers on. That never changed anybody's mind. But to me, if you can do that, that shows the person who's driving behind you, who's also a liberal, that there is somebody else in this town who thinks like me. And, there's little things like that you can do to not necessarily put yourself in danger, but to show the other people around you that, I'm safe. I'm okay to talk to. I'm like you. I'm not going to judge you for being an atheist or being a liberal.
You're not alone. You're not by yourself.
Yeah, no. Even if you're in the smallest, most redneck town, you are not the only liberal there. You're not the only atheist. It's just that you don't know who they are. But yeah, it's, I don't know.
Think about it a lot. Like I think about, I should put a bumper sticker on, or I should put a sign up in my yard, or just like sometimes I see little innocuous ones like secular, I think it's like the Secular Voting Coalition. They're a political group. They have one that says, we believe in good. So like if you look at it really quickly, you actually think it says we believe in God. But like,
I actually have the sticker on my wall. I'm looking at it.
I have it on my microwave. So,
yeah, I've got my little sticker
something
thing,
like that. Or there's an organization, I live sort of near the St. Cloud area, and the St. Cloud area has a huge Somali refugee population. And, there's a group that's involved in just trying to bring the community together, and they have a lot of just, they're called Unite Cloud, and they have a lot of sort of signs you can put up in your yard that just says like, everyone's welcome and stuff like that it's just so innocuous that like, how could it really piss anyone off? And I think about it a lot, but I haven't gotten the balls up to do it.
It's hard to do. Yeah. The Unite Cloud one, I had one of those up at my shop for a while because, we're pretty close. Where I live is about a 1-hour drive away from St. Cloud. It's probably the nearest larger city in my area. But somebody from my liberal group went and got a bunch of the signs from the Unite Cloud group and brought them up here. And, whoever wanted one took one. And I put it in front of my shop because, I thought all it said was heart, it had a heart, a shape of Minnesota with a heart on it. It said heart your neighbor. That's it. It wasn't even crazy colors. It was just like navy blue with a red heart. And I thought, you know what? If anybody drives up to my shop and they have a problem with that message, I guess they can just fuck off and leave and shop somewhere else. Like, I don't want to lose business, but at the same time, that is such an innocuous message. And I ended up getting a bunch of the all are welcome here signs from St. Paul because the group that makes those is in St. Paul. And a bunch of people in the area wanted one, so I just went ahead and put in a wholesale order at my shop. And so it's been nice because, the people who can and the people who feel safe doing it have been putting them up in their yards. And so now when you drive around town, you see one every now and again, or you see them in a shop window, and it just kind of gives you this like, oh yeah, they're one of me, and it's one of those things where, if you have a problem with the message, all are welcome here, then just fuck off.
You then. Like, I mean,
I don't know what to, I don't want to, there are people who think that I don't get liberal enough at my business. Like I shouldn't be afraid to talk politics, but I'm absolutely afraid to talk politics at work. Like over 50% of my clientele would quit buying things from me if they knew my politics. But at the same time, I'm not going to be so closed about it that I won't even say all are welcome here. I don't know. And most people, it's, sometimes people will come into my shop and they'll start maybe bringing up politics a little, just a little something, and they're kind of checking you out to see where you stand, and you're kind of checking them out. And usually those people are liberals, because if they're conservative, they don't give a shit. They'll tell everybody about their politics and be proud of it, and they'll just assume that everybody's okay with what they say. But the people who are liberals are always, you get this kind of vibe that they're trying to figure out if you're a liberal.
They're just putting the feelers out.
Yeah, and it's always fun to meet those people, because it's like, oh my God, I'm a liberal too. Oh my God. And then you just, the floodgates open and you start talking about everything. And whereas, the conservative people are just, they feel completely justified in telling absolutely everybody how they feel about everything. The businesses that are conservative leaning are totally cool with putting Trump signs up in their yards and they're at their place of business. Like, I would never put up a political sign at my place of business. Yeah. That's just, no. You're going to lose 50% of your customers no matter what. But there are so many businesses in town that put up Trump signs during the election.
The week before the election.
Because they're not afraid to. They don't think they're going to lose any business.
Before the election,
they think it's
right
fine.
on I-94, the main freeway that runs through Minnesota, about a mile from my exit, somebody put up a homemade billboard in the front yard of their business, like full-sized, homemade, that said, "Hillary is a cunt."
Oh my God.
Like the pit in my stomach when I drove past it, that I was like, people feel comfortable doing that? Really?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And the hatred that shows, and how uncomfortable and unwelcome that makes people. And I often wonder, like, what is inside that person's head? What must it be like to hate other people that much? It's got to be exhausting. I don't know. My brother lives in St. Paul, and so when he comes back home to visit, especially during election season, he's like, God damn it, I forgot how many conservative people there are. He's like, where I live, everything's liberal. All the signs, all the yard signs are all liberal, and everything's great. It's like a utopia. And then the closer he gets to where we live, he starts seeing the Trump signs, and he's like, oh yeah, I forgot.
I have a friend from New Jersey that came to stay with me, and we were driving one day, and all of a sudden she's like, what the hell is that? And she's pointing at, have you seen these? I've seen these dozens of times. Well, first of all, there's billboards. Like every 10th billboard is an anti-abortion billboard.
Oh yeah.
Everywhere.
All of them.
Everywhere in outstate Minnesota.
I make fun of them every time I drive by. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was very confusing to her. But then those yard signs, my husband's grandma used to have one in his yard as she passed away recently, but they were, I see them all over. They say, they're these yellow yard signs, and they say, pray and fast to end abortion. And I've seen them for like 10 years. And I'm like, so are you still fasting? Like, you just never eat? Like, I don't understand any of this. And she was like, what the hell is that? And I'm like, oh, you don't see that in New Jersey?
That's
and
just
she's
normal.
like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? What is that?
I haven't seen that particular sign, but yeah.
Sorry, my cat just meowed at us.
That's standard fare for this show. Yeah, every other like billboard is owned by the MCCL, which is the Minnesota Concerned Citizens for Life, and they're fucking awful. They're terrible people. They spread lies about everything, but they have these massive billboards that just annoy the shit out of me, because they always have a picture of a really cute baby on it, and then there's some cute little, like, they'll put sunglasses on it and say, I was cool since I was in the womb, or my heart started beating when I was this, they
There's one next to my work that has a tiny baby in not even a tiny baby, it's like a 1-year-old in a sailor outfit that says, I was born to sail. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, I've seen one with a baby in a motorcycle outfit that was like born to ride, or they're just awful. They're the worst billboards, and you see them everywhere. And
what else? Real men love babies.
Oh yeah, there's that one. There's a lot of that, because you got to convince the men folk to not let their women have abortions.
And a lot of just stuff talking about heartbeats.
Oh yeah,
a lot of
heartbeats, and then also like I could feel at this point just a lot of that. I started growing fingernails at this point. It's ridiculous.
I mean, I know that's really on a billboard, but it's just when you said it out loud, it sounded so.
There's
ridiculous.
In one of the towns between St. Cloud and where I live, there's a cemetery that's right along the main highway, and they have a huge monument in the cemetery that's dedicated to all the unborn babies, and it's lit up at night, and it's bigger than any other headstone in the cemetery, and it's right at the edge of the cemetery, so you can see it from the highway. it's just gaudy and ridiculous. And like, I don't know if the whole town chipped in to pay for that thing, or if their city council did it, or if just some nice charitable Catholic somewhere put it up for them. But every time I drive by it, I'm just like, oh, really? Really? You need to maintain lighting so that it's lit up at night, and
so that you remember their fingernails, Amy.
So exactly. So you remember their teeny tiny little heartbeats and how they were born to be sailors, and they didn't get that chance. And it's right next door to a huge shop that sells Confederate flags and Trump banners and Trump signs.
Is there anything more ridiculous than the Confederate flags peppered all over Minnesota?
Fucking Minnesota. I go on this rant all the time. Like, it's Minnesota. We did not fight for the South in the Civil War. You cannot have, like, just know your fucking history, people. This is Minnesota.
Oh, one of my favorite things was my, like, I don't know, he was probably like 19 at the time, year-old cousin, shared some sort of Confederate flag thing on Facebook. And my, at the time, 88-year-old grandfather, who has voted blue his entire life, also farmed his entire life, but I don't know. They were like questionable. I mean, big Bill Clinton fans, but living in Iowa, they were into it. Chewed him out on his Facebook.
Really?
Like, my 88-year-old grandfather. Well, because he already had a Facebook account because he's just badass like that.
Yeah.
And chewed him out. And then he was like, well, I just think everybody should have, like, they kind of left it at, the cousin was like, well, people should have, like, a personal right to express themselves. And my grandpa was like, yes, I guess they can express themselves. I hope you think about this topic some more or something.
Yeah, there is no
getting
justification.
Owned by your grandpa on Facebook.
That is fantastic.
A great way to end that.
A lot of people don't realize that in Minnesota, the Democratic Party is called the DFL, and that's because it's Democrat Farmer Labor Party. So that's one of the reasons Minnesota has been blue for a long time, even though it's changing now. But most of the farmers and laborers in the state voted blue. You know, that I actually have a census report. So I have an uncle that does genealogy, and he sent me a copy of, I think it was a census report from the 40s, and my grandparents were listed on it, and it had everybody's party affiliation. And he and my grandma were both listed as DFL, and most of the people on that sheet were listed as DFL. There were a few Republicans, but I mean, traditionally, farmers have been liberal. It's part of the tradition of our state.
Even like, FDR's New Deal was very pro-farmer.
Yeah.
Farmers were super on board with that type of government involvement because just it's been, in our own self-interest.
For people, yeah. My other grandparent, not the one that was a farmer, but he was part of the Civilian Conservation Corps. He helped, I can't remember what it was he helped build, but he was part of that. We have a big picture of the group he worked in, and it was a hugely popular program, and it got a lot of shit done, like our national parks and a lot of I always wonder, why can't we do something like that again? Like, people loved it. It was insanely popular. Things got done, but I guess, I don't know. Trump's making America great his own way, so we just need to wait for his results to come in, and because he cares about farmers.
It's magical.
Yeah, it'll
just sort of, we'll wake up one morning and we'll be like, holy shit, America is so great. Oh my God,
I was listening to NPR on the way home last night, and they were interviewing people who were very excited about Donald Trump and the fact that they had voted for him, and they were so excited to vote for him again next year, and they were talking about why. I almost vomited just listening to it. It was all these people go, I think he's done such a great job. I mean, keeping the immigrants out, and what he's done for farmers, and when I voted for him,
in my farmer groups, nobody will even defend him anymore. In my farmer groups.
How could you?
Even his tweets, like he tweeted something about like I love farmers or something like a month ago, and nobody will even defend him anymore.
Because everybody knows that man has never been on a farm in his fucking life. He does not give two shits about farmers. He does not care. Like, it drives me crazy that people think that he identifies with the common man, quote unquote. Like, he's a rich douche who doesn't give a shit about you. Whose
entire life goal was to be a rich New York snob. Yeah. That's his life goal. He is
the coastal elite. Like, he is the coastal elite that everybody complains about, but somehow in this alternate universe we're living in, he suddenly becomes the everyman. I'm just like you. I don't know.
With his golden toilet, because every man has a golden toilet.
I have a golden toilet upstairs. I've got like 3. That's a sign of class.
What I am currently sitting in used to be a toilet closet. It was a closet that just had a toilet in it, and you couldn't close the door, and when you sat on it, you looked out the window into your driveway, so you could make sure nobody was showing up because my house was built before indoor plumbing, and then somebody had a prostate problem and couldn't get upstairs to use the one working bathroom, so they just added a toilet.
I've got relatives who didn't have indoor plumbing the entire time we were growing up. They had a bucket in their house. They had an outhouse too, but they had a bucket inside just for in case they had to. But yeah, no indoor plumbing the entire time I was growing up. And I think about this a lot, but like part of me thinks, I think some of my compassion comes from the fact that a lot of my relatives lived like that, and that was just kind of normal to me. Like, I assumed a lot of people didn't have indoor plumbing, and my kids, the world they're growing up in now is so radically different. Like, it seems like the world is a little bit more sanitized now, if that makes sense. It's, I don't know. And maybe it's just the people I hang out with, but I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with that. I feel like my kids need to learn some shit.
To the whole eating meat thing, though, is like, I don't know what people are expecting of that process. Because like, I grew up when as soon as I could walk, I was walking around with my dad hunting squirrels in the woods, and he would shoot them and immediately, like as soon as we grabbed them from under the tree, skin them and point out, oh, here's their heart and here's their lungs and look at this. And like, there's this weird situation where like people at some point in their childhood are shocked to learn where their meat comes from. And to me, it was never a thing I had to learn. I literally helped skin dead squirrels when I was a toddler.
Yeah.
And then people look at that and they think it's like horrifying, but I'm like, that's why I love biology. Yeah. That's how you get surgeons, people that aren't squeamish around the insides of stuff. You know, it's just, that's where your food comes from. And if I had my way, if you're not comfortable, I know this would probably result in a lot less people eating meat and probably be bad for my business. But if you're not comfortable with the idea of the animal getting shot between the eyes and hung up by the back legs and dressed out, don't eat meat then. If you're not comfortable with that, don't do it. But I am so perfectly comfortable with that idea. I see it as the circle of life. I see the way that animals fit into a sustainable food chain because they take land that we can't grow human food on. They take foods that we can't feed humans with, and they turn it into protein and fat that humans need to survive, you know? And I'm comfortable with the whole situation. And there seems to be this disconnect where people feel like they can only eat animal products if they don't think very hard about where it comes from. And I'm like, then you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it if you're not comfortable with it.
I've had to explain, you know, because kids ask at a certain point, like, how do you make this? Or where did this come from? And we've always just said it's a cow. You know, you've seen cows on the side of it. That comes from a cow. And you kind of expect your kids to be like, oh my fucking God, I'm not eating that anymore. And both of my kids were like, oh, okay. Keep chewing on their hamburger. They don't give a shit. They love meat so much.
I even know farmers who like, they don't name the animals that they're going to eat themselves, or like they buy it from the grocery store because they can't take their own cow. Usually like hobby farmers, not like commercial farmers. But like, you know who's in my freezer right now? Her name was Rocky, and her time was up. And I had a few months to be like, all right, if she doesn't meet this metric or if she doesn't do this, and you know, I kind of like over impose on it. I'm like I have a little chat with her, Rocky, honey, it's your last chance. If you don't get pregnant, it's time, because you're real fat and you're real lazy and you're not working very hard, and that's how it goes. And you know, Rocky didn't get pregnant. And so like, I'm 100% fine. The cow before that, her name was Spell. I gave her a scratch on the neck. I drove her to the butcher myself. I walked her right into the chute. I mean, to me, it's like, I don't need to separate myself, and I don't really want to separate myself. If I'm not comfortable knowing that like it was time, then I shouldn't. And like, even if I have an animal that's sick and I have to put it down, like, it's very important to me that I do it myself. Like, it's kind of rough. And sometimes I make my husband go get the gun and load it for me. And I make him come out with me and stand next to me so I can cry on his shoulder when I'm done. But to me, it's really important to me that like, if I can't make myself do it myself, then it's not time. And if I'm fully confident that like, okay, this cow is sick, her suffering is at the point when the best thing to do is to put her out of her misery, as long as I'm confident in that decision, then I should be able to do it myself. And like, I owe it to her to do it myself.
See, and I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't be a farmer. I couldn't do it. I'm too squeamish, and I'm that person that would be like, but his name's Harry. You can't kill. Like, I would have such a hard time being close to the animals and then having that reality of having to kill them. Like, I'm not built for it. So I'm glad other people are, because I recognize I'd be fucking terrible at it. But at the same time, I also have and this is an unpopular opinion. We'll probably have people quit listening because of this, but I very firmly believe that animals are not people. Like, people who treat their animals, like who talk about their animals as if they're their children, which I get the impulse and I get it that, you know, your dog or your cat or your pet, I get that the love you have for them can feel insanely overwhelming and that, you know, but they're not people. Like, I'm sorry, but people are more important.
I kind of engage in that because like I said to Rocky, like, this is your last chance. If you don't get pregnant, you're hamburger. You know, I mean, so I engage in that.
Yeah.
I God damn it, Amy. I sleep spooning my dog every night. Okay. I sleep spooning my dog every night.
My cat
but I
lays
also
on me
understand
every night.
that their needs are not my needs. And like what they find valuable in life is not what I find valuable in life. And I've seen a really weird thing or what I think seems to be a new thing in like the animal rescue community, the companion animal like trainer and small animal vet community. I'm a farmer, so I have to specify small animal.
Yeah.
They have been pushing back really hard because they're seeing the detrimental effects of people treating their pets like humans and how bad it is for creating poor animal behaviors. People are doing a poor job like correcting dog behaviors the right way because they're thinking of them as people. And then I got this new job. It's for a giant multinational corporation that I will not name. I was reading some like market reports because they have their hand, like they're one of the largest companies in the entire world and they have their hands in everything. It has actually been a main strategy of all the places that sell pet and animal related products to try to convince us all that our pets are human members of the family because we will spend more money
Absolutely.
on them.
We spend more money on pets than kids.
It's literally a concerted effort by corporations to have us treat our animals in a way that results in them having a worse life.
I feel bad because I have a lot of friends that do that or that don't have children and will say, you know, no, these are my fur babies and they're just like a real baby. And I remember talking to my brother about it right after his daughters were born because he was that person. His dog was his baby and he spent a fortune keeping this dog alive well beyond when it should have been alive. And he was heartbroken when he finally had to put him to sleep. And then he had kids and he's like, yeah, I realized after I had kids, a dog, you can give it away to somebody else. Like, you can't just give your kids to somebody else after a year because they're chewing on your shoes. Like, it's a totally different thing. It's like, at the end of the day, you can take your dog and shoot it and nobody's coming after you. Like, it's the idea that dogs and cats are on an equal footing with human children just really rubs me the wrong way. Like, I love my cats. People who've seen my Instagram feed know I fucking love my cats so much.
Oh, you have cats?
You didn't know? I got a new one. I'll shoot you a pic. Amy hasn't seen it yet either, so I'll just send everybody new pics. But yeah, I love my children more. I just do because they're human children and I gave birth to them. And yeah, if you go into PetSmart, it's nonsense. I walk through the aisles and it's
I
like,
do not go into
are you fucking
PetSmart.
kidding
I buy
me?
the cheapest possible dog food at the farm store, and also the cheapest possible cat food at the farm store. The cats seem to like the dog food more.
I've been buying the locale cat food just because my one cat, I realized that I let him get so morbidly obese that it's just irresponsible and it's totally my fault. I didn't realize how bad it was until recently. So I'm like, shit.
He doesn't look that fat in the pictures,
for fuck's sake. This cat is terrible. It's so bad. Like, we didn't realize how bad it was till we got the new cat and then compared. Like, oh, she's a normal weight and you can pick her up and she's very light and you pick him up and he feels like a bowling ball. And oh my God. So yeah, he needs to lose some fucking weight. But But other than that, yeah, I'm not going to buy them outfits. I'm not going to buy them brand new beds. It's just, they're animals.
Like, my dog probably doesn't even like being spooned all night.
He might.
She's not a human.
I mean, my new cat likes to get under the covers and, lay by my legs, and they like to do that. But at the end of the day, she'd eat me if I died. I'm sure she would. I'd be a food source for her. I watched this morning, Chappie, our big morbidly obese cat, was angry because he needs food 24 hours a day. And if you're not providing it, he's just going to meow at you. But I let him outside and he found a mouse and I watched him eating the mouse. And then 5 minutes later, I watched him puke that entire mouse back up onto my deck. It's still sitting on my deck. God. And I'm trying to decide if I should ignore it and hope it'll go away.
My dog puked up an entire duck once.
Oh, God.
I was not home.
Oh, my God.
I was not home for this event. And I'm so happy I was not home for this event.
It's, like regurgitated animals are the fucking worst. And I know you're supposed to keep cats in the house. I know, I get it, but I'm not perfect. My cats go outside, so.
I have a farm.
I live in the country.
Half my cats live outside.
Well, like when you have a farm, that's just part of having a farm is.
So I think the cats going in and out thing is a great example, though. So like we think, I wouldn't want to be locked in a barn all day. So a cow doesn't want to either. But think about it. Your cat wants to go outside. Your fucking cat wants to go outside. But everyone who's on the animal welfare train will tell you, keep your cats inside, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they are perfectly willing to make compromises about what your cat actually wants and what's best for them, both best for the environment and best for them. And there is a very solid argument to be made that keeping cows inside is pretty dang good for them and pretty dang good for the environment in most situations. And frankly, cats don't want to go outside nearly the way that cats want. Cows don't want to go outside the way that cats do. And now my headset is vibrating. I don't know why. But so cows are prey animals. People and dogs and cats were predators. Yeah. And we have higher cognitive function than cows do. Cows are terrified of everything. Yeah. Cows are terrified of everything. A large portion of the time, what cows want is to feel like they are in a safe, familiar environment. Or at least that's my read on cows. Or that seems to be what they want. So do they get excited when I put them out on pasture? Like you can find videos on YouTube of cows getting out on pasture for the first time in the spring and they're so excited. That's true. You know what? They're also exactly that excited if you put them in a new pen in the barn. Yeah. If you just open up a gate and then they can go to the other one. And it's so much fun to watch them and they jump and they play and it's ridiculous because cows are not meant to run and it's a silly, silly looking thing to watch. But so we're sort of imposing our human values on I think grass is prettier than concrete. And it's yes, well, you're also not terrified of your own shadow, Karen. Yeah. So
I love Karen.
There are trade-offs here.
Oh my God. I actually met Karen at work today. I think if you looked up Karen in the dictionary, I think I fucking found her. This has nothing to do with cows, but I have to tell somebody because it's so bad. This woman comes into my shop and she was, you know how some people you can just smell the money on them? She was clearly from Edina. If you're from Minnesota, you know that reference. She was obviously from Edina, had I could just smell the Edina on her. And she's looking around my thrift shop and she found these cute little pewter little dishes that she was going to put flowers in for a wedding or something. And they were antiques and they're so cute and I had them at a good price. And then she found some milk glass and she had a vase and a little bud holder for, little flowers and a little soap dish. And she's like, do you know if these are antique milk glass or are these more modern? And I'm like, I really don't. I don't know how you tell the difference, but let me Google it. So I Googled it for her and I'm reading this whole WikiHow thing about how you can tell if milk glass is old or if it's reproduction. And none of us could really tell. You're supposed to hold it up to the light. I don't fucking know. I figured out one of them was new because it said made in Taiwan, but the other two, I have no fucking idea. I had them marked at $1. And this woman stood there going, but I don't think I want them if they're not old though. And her friends with her going, yeah, but you like how they look. If you're just going to put flowers in them and you think they're pretty, they're only $1. And she's like, yeah, but if they're not antiques, it's just not the same. I just don't think I want them. And her friend clearly was cool and down to earth and I really liked her. And she's like, just fuck it. It's $1. Just buy them and put the flowers in them. It'll be fine. I don't. And then I rang up all of her
For
shit.
$1.
Yeah, I rang up all of her stuff, and I'm doing 25% off everything in the shop right now because I have to move the shop. It's a long story, but so I rang up all her shit, and then I gave her the 25% off. And of course, she's, reading with a fine-tooth comb her entire receipt to make sure I didn't scam her on anything. She's like, and this is with the 25% off, right? I'm like, yes, I gave you the 25%. It came to like $30 total, her whole thing. But it's like, you clearly have the kind of money to throw around. Don't harass me about my $1 milk glass vase and the 25% that you got off after I just did a bunch of research for you on milk glass. Oh God, people are the worst. I just hate them. They're all terrible. So yeah, I met Karen.
Mostly,
I hate
yeah.
her. But anyway, well, this has been a fascinating discussion. I've actually learned a lot and I really enjoyed it. And we need to have you back on when both of us are here. When Amy's not being a total slacker.
So,
that's good, though. That's what we're about on this show, just all opinions. But you actually come with some facts to back up those opinions, whereas Amy and I are all just opinion with nothing to back that up.
I hope all those numbers I quoted were.
Trust
they were
me.
pretty close,
They're going to be more accurate than any numbers I would give you on anything. So we're just going to take your word for it. But if people want to learn more about it, they should listen to your podcast, which is called what? And where can they find it?
Yeah, it's called Evidence-Based Eating. So I have a Facebook page for it, and it's on Spreaker, and it's on it's on iTunes. I've tried to get it on most of the sites for downloading podcasts. I started it this winter, but I only have 4 episodes up because they take a lot of research, and I'm working an unbelievable amount.
Yeah.
So, and I just really don't want to say anything incorrect.
And podcasting is more work than people think.
It is. It was more work than I thought it would be. I do try to have guests on. I do have some cool patron rewards, especially at the higher levels, getting a cow that's kind of like your cow, and I send you updates on it.
Aw,
so,
I love that.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I just now found your page. I don't know how I hadn't liked it before, but...
How dare you? We need to cancel this interview.
Did you not send me like a request? I don't know.
No, I didn't.
I'm kind of a big name. And so now that I'm a celebrity in the podcast world, you have to really bring my attention to things or else I don't notice them.
I see.
I'm kind of a big deal. I don't know if you knew this.
You have a lot going on.
Yeah. I like to tell
a lot of requests.
I like to tell my friends what a big deal I am. None of them believe me. So yes, I'm going to go ahead and like your page while I'm thinking about it. I think I just
Thanks.
did.
I got a logo, like a real logo. It used to just be a picture of a cow sticking its tongue out.
No,
but
I like
got
it.
A real logo.
It's a good
now,
logo.
So.
Solid page. That's awesome. So yeah, go check out her podcast. And while you're on Patreon giving her money so that you can get your own Adopt-A-Cow, you can also give us money on our Patreon. And you're one of our patrons, which makes me feel bad because then we should be one of your patrons. And we should just
trade that dollar.
We should trade the dollar.
But then also
we really
give
should.
Patreon the fees.
See, I feel like at a certain point, everybody, because we have a lot of podcasts that give us money, which is fantastic. But then I feel like, if we just give them money, aren't we all breaking even at some point?
Yeah.
So we prefer to just take everybody's money and not give back because that's the kind of people we are. So on our Patreon, we do not have pictures of cows to send you, but we do have hand-painted dick bowls. And I'll have to make you one of these days because I just got a few extras and I tend to send them to everybody that we have on the show. So
that's very nice.
Be expecting
I have been coveting a dick bowl.
You're going to get a dick bowl. There's probably going to be a cow on it.
But I was not willing to pony up.
Oh, no. I totally get it. That's why you're doing all the work for free right now by just filling in for Amy. So I have a bowl upstairs. I will start painting it and I will put dicks all over it and I'll have a cow on it somewhere. So personally made just for you. But if any of the muggles out there want to get their dick bowl, you have to pledge $10 a month to our show. And I've learned that you can't send out the dick bowl the first month because then people just give you $10 and then they go away.
Rude.
And then you've paid $13 to ship them a mug. The math doesn't work out, and I'm learning more about math. So yes, if you would like to join us at patreon.com/secular soup, you can find all of our fabulous rewards and all of our fabulous levels of membership. If you get to the $10 one, you'll have a dick bowl. I've been trying not to read every single patron every week because it takes me forever because I can't do anything with brevity or quickly.
You don't want to do it all in one breath? Like
I
Noah?
should try. Let me see if I can do that this time. It'll be a challenge. Ready? I'm going to start now. Let's see if I can do it in my breath. Okay. Tris, Mind Your Own Uterus, Jesse, Dumb All Over Podcast, Dino, Kristen, Cowbell, Stephen and Cindy, Nathan, Kimberly, Rebecca, Veroline, Sarah, Liz, Satan, Toshby, Matt, Andy, Jeannie, Elvin Engineer, Sarah, Everything or 215 supports America Unites for separation of church and state. Alan Marks. Okay, I can't. I'm out of breath. Can't do it. But I got halfway done.
That means you have a lot of patrons, so I think it's a win.
It's good, yeah. Then we have, okay, take another breath. Alan, Jerry, Marissa, Dr. Dylan Medical Detective, Alice of the Ask and Tell Project, AskandTell.com, Larry Yellingman, Keith, Rich. Oh, shit, I need to give... What do you think we should rank Rich at this week? You're the guest, so pick a random number.
12.
Okay, Rich, you're our 12th favorite Rich this week. That's good. That's up from last week. So speaking of which, one of our other patrons, Nathan, has created an entire PowerPoint presentation that tracks Rich's rankings throughout the entire course of our show. It's the greatest thing ever. And
Amy, what have you done?
He spent his time re-listening to every episode just to find out how Rich was ranked. And he's made a PowerPoint presentation with charts. It's fantastic. So very soon we're going to have Rich and Nathan on so that Nathan can present his PowerPoint and Rich can react to it. And it's going to be a good time for everybody. So yeah, stay tuned for that for when I get my shit together and plan it. We have also got Yesh, Wendy, whose bowl is now 7/8 done. I'm so close to finishing it. And then our top patrons, our very top patrons who give us $20 a month or more. So I really should mention all of them. Our very favorite patron, Ashley, our kind of other favorite patron, Randall, but not as much as Ashley because she's a lady. Nathan, who is the second favorite, maybe. Nathan, he pledges at $30 a month and he makes entire PowerPoint presentations about Rich's rankings. So he's fucking amazing. And our top patron, the one that we don't like as much, but he's still the top because he gives us $30.02 a month, is now named Reparations Now, which I believe is a political statement. And so I'm going to give you your moment, Willis. His new name is Reparations Now. If you don't know about reparations, go read some Ta-Nehisi Coates. It's an interesting subject. I'm not going to expound on it because I don't know what I'm talking about. So thank you to all of our wonderful patrons, and thank you so much for being on the show, Dell. It was a fascinating time. I had so much more fun with you than I would have with Amy, so I'm going to thank you for that right up front. Amy may or may not be back next week. We'll find out. Stay tuned for the mystery.
Well, you've already said that I'm actually a closer friend than Amy is because we've met in real life.
We've met in real life.
And at least until August, I'm actually cooler than Amy is.
And we live much closer to each other than Amy and I do. So, I mean... Come on. Technically, if I wanted to, I could get in my car and make it to your house in less than a day. So can't really say that about Amy.
less than a day. Yeah. I mean, I think significantly less than a day. But I mean, yes.
You got to figure in that I sleep at least 18 hours a day. So a day for me is a little bit shorter. But thank you so much.
I was at work when you messaged me and I was like, I could literally drive to her house.
You could.
The same amount of time that I could drive home. And then I was like, that would be rude.
It'd be a little creepy, not gonna lie. I mean, as long as you gave me a heads up and my kids weren't going, who's that person in the driveway that's in that car? Yeah. We live in a cul-de-sac, so sometimes we get creepy cars on the cul-de-sac and all the kids' ears perk up and they're like, why is there a car sitting out there? Anyway, we will meet again because it was so fun hanging out with you in person, and it's been really fun hanging out with you on the podcast, and I need to go back and listen to all of your episodes because you have fascinating things to say about animals.
And just so you know, we never got to my extremely important true crime story that I bribed you with.
I totally forgot.
So now you have to have me on again some other day to hear about my extremely personally related, super interesting, unsolved murder true crime story.
If you want, you can tell it right now. I'm not going anywhere, but I can also just have you back on to talk about it. So I'm going to let you pick.
I'm not going to tell you now. Right, well, we're at like an hour and 20 minutes.
It's way past time. And it's past 8 o'clock, which means I need to go to bed. And I have a whole...
My wine glass has been empty for like 15 minutes.
Oh my God. I have an entire angel food cake upstairs that needs to be eaten in one sitting. So
I'm so hungry. I haven't eaten dinner yet.
Oh my God. You're really sacrificing for this show. We appreciate it.
No. Blood, sweat, and tears here.
So yes, thank you so much for being on. Thank you everybody for joining us. This is what we call the Minnesota goodbye. You might know what the Minnesota goodbye is, Dell. Amy probably doesn't. Yeah. The Minnesota goodbye takes an hour and a half. It's you never actually leave. So, but we're going to do it now, and I'm not going to read the outro because that's Amy's job and she's not here. So fuck it. I'm not saying it, but we will leave you.
And I'm a great super fan who doesn't know it.
I wrote it and I can't remember it. So whatever. It says something about following us on Twitter and Facebook, but if you have even an ounce of a brain brain. You probably know that podcast pages have Twitters and Facebooks. And
Google
fucking Google that shit. It's not that hard. And tell your friends. As always, we will leave you with the vocal stylings of one Mr. Eli Bosnick.
Secular soup creed. Soup is the ultimate virtue. It's delicious, nutritious, patriarchy smashing, racism fighting, warm and fuzzy, human affirming, fun having, anti-theist, glitter throwing, tummy satisfying, pair of new shoes fulfilling, diversity seeking, happiness. Minestrone, beef and barley, chicken broth and split pea, gazpacho, tomato, clam chowder and potato, chicken noodle, beef noodle, egg drop and ramen cup, miso, gumbo, leek and pho. Grab a bowl and taste the magic. Slurp even this.